Hi, happy Sunday, and welcome to Righteous Boundaries versus Loving Gentle Ones. This is something that I've wanted to come on here and share for a good week now, and I'm so happy to have the opportunity to share this with you. So this has become really prevalent in my life, in addition to me seeing this in my clients and in my loved ones as well. And there's a huge difference between setting boundaries with people because we feel like I deserve it and I need to stand up for myself and I don't want people to treat me this way, and I'm setting this boundary because I feel like I need to, like I have to in order to take care of myself, versus I'm setting a boundary because it's super gentle and loving to take care of myself. It's super gentle and loving to love on myself by setting this boundary, and honestly, be really loving to the other person and to nurture the relationship by setting the boundary. There's a totally different vibe behind both of these. So I'm going to give you 3 ways to identify the difference between setting a righteous boundary, like I'm setting this out of anger and I'm setting this out of like, how dare you, versus I'm setting this from a place of love. Okay. So I'm going to give you 3 ways to tell the difference between the two, because when we set righteous boundaries, if we're coming from a place of negativity, then more negativity is going to come to us. Okay. And then we're going to wonder why the hell our boundaries don't work. So, the first thing I want to bring up is, what is the vibe behind the boundary being set? Like, is it coming from irritation and resentment? Because your boundary isn't going to give you what you want coming from that space. Like, your boundaries respond to frustration or to vibration. Sorry. The universe responds to vibration, and boundaries are very simple. It's literally just simple, authentic communication. That's all it is. Just unapologetically sharing exactly what you need or desire. That's it. It only gets more complicated than that because we're thinking about, how is this other person going to potentially respond to this? We get nervous about losing the relationship or about losing things that we're attached to in our lives. And just like Jay Shetty says in his book, Think Like a Monk, having attachments is one of the biggest plights of being human, because we have so many attachments to our relationships, to items, to money, to things that we want, that we think, okay, once I get to that point, then I'll feel better, right? And they really hold us back. And the more that we're open, the more we allow ourselves to just surrender and just say, no, this is what I desire. This is what I want, or this makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't need to analyze why. I don't need to analyze whether it's correct or right. I just listen to my intuition. I allow it to guide me. And I say, okay, like, if I'm feeling this way, there must be a reason. It may change tomorrow. It may change the next day. But right now in this moment, this is what feels really loving to honor where I currently am. Okay. But if we're coming from a place of irritation or resentment, we can set boundaries almost like a spite move. And we can set boundaries almost like a screw you to the other person in a way that we're kind of punishing them, right? And that is not the vibe. That is not where we want to come from. That is not the point of boundaries. We don't want to set boundaries with other people. We want to set boundaries for ourselves, because when we set boundaries for ourselves, it's then going to apply no matter who and what comes into our field. So it's kind of like a one size fits all. We set them for ourselves and it's good across the board. Okay, so that's number 1, the first way to tell the difference between righteous boundaries and loving gentle ones is, what is the vibe behind the boundary being set? You're going to set a boundary, be like, okay, am I doing this because I'm pissed off? Am I doing this because I'm trying to claim justice? Because if that's what you're coming from, then you need to go back to the drawing board. You need to sit with yourself a little bit, bring yourself back to a space of love, bring yourself back to a space of gentleness, because the goal is to be connected. The goal is to have that collaborative relationship. The goal is to grow together. And that's not going to happen if you're just doing it out of spite. Then that's going to be more of a punishment. Okay. The number 2 way to tell the difference between righteous boundaries and gentle loving one is asking, what is the goal of setting this boundary? Like, what am I trying to get out of this? What's the purpose of this? Because if we are setting a boundary because we're trying to get a certain response from another person, then we're being manipulative, and we're not doing it on purpose. This is subconscious, okay? But that's why I wanted to come on here, because the more awareness that we have around these things, the more prepared we're going to be in terms of setting boundaries that are going to be successful and bringing us what it is we desire. If we are attached to the outcome of, okay, I'm going to set this boundary, which means I'm going to get this in return, either from this person or the outcome that I'm looking for in the situation, then we are not really setting a boundary for ourselves. We're actually trying to manipulate our reality to get what we want. And that's forceful energy, and that isn't going to get us what we want, because boundaries give us freedom. When we set boundaries for ourselves, it gives us so much freedom. And we don't have freedom when we're just fixated on an agenda. We're trying to be controlling, okay? If the goal behind the boundary setting is for your own expansion, great, go for it. Okay, but let's not try to control ourselves or other people or the situations, because that's just going to leave us with more of the same and receiving more control coming back, okay? And number 3, which I just kind of alluded to a little bit, the number 3 way to identify the difference between righteous boundaries and gentle, loving boundaries is this coming from a space of supporting my own expansion? Or is it from a space of anger, spite, or manipulation because you're looking for a certain response or protection, right? So we want to make sure that when we set a boundary, it feels like, oh, I'm setting this boundary lovingly and gently because I know that when I do so, I have more space within me. I have more space within my mind, within my energy field, within my heart space, within my environment that gives me more freedom to become more of who I am. And when we do that, then we know we're going in the right direction. When we're focusing on setting boundaries based on protection, that's a totally different topic. That's like a fascinating topic to talk about, actually. But protection is really just a reflection of how little faith and trust that we have in ourselves and in the universe and in other people, right? Because we don't technically need to protect ourselves from anything. I mean, obviously, if you're in an abusive situation or in an unsafe physical environment, take whatever steps are necessary to be able to get yourself to a place of safety. But when we talk about protecting our aura, protecting our energy, protecting our emotions, those are all things that are simply a reflection of our lack of alignment and our lack of confidence. Because if we're in a really strong, fortified state, we are not going to need to worry about anybody rocking the boat because we're solid. We know who we are, we know where we're going, and our purpose is very clear, okay? So what we want is we want to be able to set boundaries from a centered, unconditionally loving, divine, and Zen space, okay? Because that's what we want to embody. We want to be unwavering. We want to occupy this vibe of, I know who I am, I know where I'm going, and anything that does not feel in alignment to that falls away. Is automatically not welcomed into my field. I don't even need to set a boundary because the boundary is set with myself. And so when that comes into my field, I can very easily say, nah, that's not in alignment with who I am or where I'm going or who I desire to become. Okay. It feels so amazing. You feel so much more in your power because what you're saying is, I love myself. I love where I'm going. And I'm so looking forward to this next version of who I am. And I'm devoted to that next version of who I am. And when I'm that devoted to that next version of who I am, and if there's so much clarity around it, then when these other things come into play, they're just not relevant. They're just not relevant. And and it's so easy. You're so decisive, right? So if you're just jumping on, jump back to the beginning as soon as I complete this live, because I gave 3 reasons of why righteous boundaries are different from gentle, loving boundaries, how you can tell the difference between the two of them, and really ask yourself some clarifying questions to be able to come from a place of, when I set this boundary, I'm going to be in a place of real sustainability. I'm going to be able to hold it. Because that's one of the biggest complaints that I get from people, from clients, from loved ones, which is, I set the boundary, but I can't hold it, right? I set the boundary, but I'm having trouble not wavering on it. And I keep kind of going in and out of it. That's like classic human condition shit, right? It's like we set the boundary, but then it's like we can't stick to it. And so these tips are going to, if you practice them consistently, I promise you, you're going to find that your boundaries are much more sustainable, and they're going to be coming from a place that really serves who you're becoming and not old resentments, stories, traumas, etc. Okay? I actually have an energetic activation called Activate Your Boundaries coming up on Tuesday. There's a link in my bio. So I'm actually going to be doing a live tomorrow with Anna Jones, who is going to be doing this masterclass with me. And that's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So you can catch us together if you don't know Anna, just to get a feel for the energy, and then join us on Zoom. We're going to be on Zoom on Tuesday which is 11/1 at 1:11 p.m. Eastern time, because who doesn't love angel numbers? And you can join us on Zoom, where we're going to be doing a really, really potent activation and getting really individual with each person around where are you having trouble setting boundaries? Where are you having trouble maintaining boundaries? How can we fortify them? How can we launch you into activating those boundaries that are already within you? And you're just needing a little bit more support or a little more clarity around actualizing these and holding them sustainably. Okay. So check out the link in my bio. This live will be on my page so that if you jumped on late, you can go back and listen to the 3 ways that you can tell the difference between righteous boundaries and gentle, loving ones. Mwah. I hope you have a beautiful start to your week. Happy Sunday night, and I'll see you soon. Bye.